Welcome to Goldfish on Games, and today I've got a riddle for you. What does a love heart, a semi-naked woman, multiplayer being a graphical and technical showcase have in common? Well, the answer is Forsaken.
The future is forsaken. The future is forsaken. The future is forsaken. The future is forsaken.
Radiation level 85.
Get off my back! I'm losing it! Bogey in your six! Yankees split up!
Critical. Critical.
Pull out!
Critical.
The future is forsaken. The future is forsaken. The future is forsaken. The future is forsaken.
With the recent announcement of the HD remake, I figured it might be fun to go back and look at the original title on both PC and, just because I have the cart to hand, the N64. My PC release and my N64 release are the European one, which had this far more sedate looking artwork. But at least the PC still did come in that nice big box from the 90s, which I liked. The N64, however, is just a cartridge, and I don't have any of the other box art to go with it. Those outside of Europe got a significantly different box art, and this is where this naked woman with a tattoo starts to show up. And amazingly, the only other place you can see this is in its print advertising, as she did not appear in the game at all. And we're going to look at that print advertising now, which can be classed as slightly not safe for work. So if you're not interested in the edgy 90s mature marketing that they went with, you're going to want to skip forward about 40 odd seconds if you want to avoid the smut. So Forsaken wasn't the first game to use an overly sexual advertising campaign. Tomb Raider used Lara Croft in various situations, Fighting Vipers used Honey as well as some of the other characters, and Battlecruiser 3000 AD, while it had very little to do with the game itself, at least managed to get the box as well as some screenshots into its advertising campaign. But Forsaken didn't manage any of that. It was a naked woman with a tattoo, and that was it. If you hadn't heard of the game before, all you'd know from this advert is its name, and that's all they wanted. It was simply an advertising campaign to get the name out, not for you to know anything about the game itself. For those who don't know, the game is a first-person shooter that gives you a full 6 degrees of motion, which allows you great freedom in being able to attack and take out your enemies. The game was written to be a technical showcase and a graphical wonder to really show what the company could do, and amazingly managed to line up perfectly with the explosion of 3D cards in the PC space. And I have to admit, this looks stunning running on my 1997 Orchid Righteous Voodoo 1 card. It also ended up looking really nice on the N64, and amazingly had its own set of levels. So if you are a big fan of Forsaken, then it's worth tracking down a copy of both platforms, so you can experience everything the game had to offer. But one thing that the N64 didn't have to offer was the intro.
In a world where science had stepped beyond the realms of humanity, and the search for higher learning had broken all known limits, a subatomic experiment gone wrong caused an uncontrollable fusion reaction to rip through planet Earth. Now, 1 year later, the fragmented planet has been classified condemned by the ruling imperial theocracy, meaning that every freeloading scum in the universe has the right to raid the dead system and take anything left behind. Amidst the blasted remains of the forlorn Earth, the worst mercenaries this side of the sun do battle not only against each other, but also the robot sentinels that the government has left behind. Our future has become Forsaken.
As we've seen, the story is a little threadbare, but this is a 90s shooter, and story was rarely the focus. What they wanted to get across was the graphics and the gameplay. The game had, in its single player mode, 15 levels, plus an extra hidden one, as well as a huge number of weapons, all upgradable, and quite the range of difficulty settings. And boy, do those get difficult at the higher settings, to the point where they actually issued a patch that actually toned down the difficulty. The intro barely scratches the surface on the number of playable characters in this game. There are a huge number, and on top of that, they are all voiced, they all have their own bike, and they all have their own various stats. And even if you don't pick a character, you will see it at some point in one of the levels as one of the opponents. and you'll have to fight them to complete that level. And if that's not enough, there's even a secret character known as Fly Girl, who you'll get through completing the secret level. Now the basic objective of most levels tends to be kill everything, make it to the exit, but they like to mix things up wherever they could. We have levels that are timed, we have large bosses to fight against, we have some levels that give you specific objectives, such as turn off an out of control reactor. Other levels end up being a race to the exit. The levels themselves contain all sorts of obstacles, like falling rocks, locked doors, as well as quite large and complex layouts. Now, I will admit I am not the best player at these type of games. There's 6 degrees of movement, which means you have 12 different directions that you need to map to various buttons and keys, means that it ends up being a bit confusing at times. But it is a game that rewards dedication, because when you feel in control and flying around those levels, you feel unstoppable, and it's awesome. With the skill levels required, it's not entirely unsurprising that multiplayer became quite a big focus for this game. On the N64 we had 4-player split screen, and on PC we had 16 then 32 player options, and they made quite a lot of game modes for it as well. We had the standard deathmatch and team deathmatch, as well as capture the flag. They even came up with a few of their own game modes, such as Bounty Hunt, where one player would collect the gold, and then everyone else would then have to chase him down and kill him to then take the gold, because the longer you hold the gold, the more points you get, and the player or the team at the end of the match who have the most points wins. And while the N64 was local multiplayer only, PC had both LAN and online options. So if you're interested in playing this game again now, what are your options? Well, one is to track down a copy of the game itself. Now, they don't tend to be too expensive for both the N64, PC, or even the PlayStation 1 version. Now, I had no problems installing the game on my older hardware and getting it running, and if you've got a decent graphics card, it will look awesome. The game itself hasn't hit any of the digital storefronts, but a few years back they actually released the entire source code as well as all the main assets for the game for free on GitHub. Now, it doesn't include the music or any of the videos, but you can now download a version of the game that will run on modern Windows, Linux, OS X and various other platforms and play it straight away. You don't need a copy of the original game, and if you're not that interested in the videos and the music, then you're not going to miss anything at all. It's really great what they've managed to do with the game. There is also the HD remaster coming to PC and consoles. Now, I don't have a copy of it yet, but when I do, I'm sure I'll be able to put up another video talking about the differences between the classic and the new version. So if you're interested in hearing what I think about the new HD remaster, then you know what you're going to need to do. Like, subscribe, find me on the various social media networks. That way you can hear exactly when the new video goes live. And then you can hear exactly what I think of it versus this game, which I think is bloody brilliant. I had that difficulty getting over the controls initially, but once I did and remapped them to something that worked for me, the game just unlocks this wonderful title that is so playable and so deep. And hopefully I've given you a glimpse of what that is in this video. And until next time, I've been the Goldfish, this was Forsaken, and this has been Goldfish on Games. And remember, the future is forsaken. The future is forsaken.
The future is forsaken. The future is forsaken. The future is forsaken. The future is forsaken.
Radiation level 85.
Get off my back! I'm losing it! Bogey in your 6! Yankee, split up!
Critical. Critical.
Pull out!
Critical.
The future is forsaken. The future is forsaken.